Hello, everyone, and welcome to my free live webinar, The Sugar Detox. I'm Dee McCaffrey, and I'm really happy that you have joined me this evening. It's the beginning of the year. It is January 10th, which I can't believe it's already 10 days into the new year. But the new year is always a really great time to refresh and renew. I'm not going to say the word resolve as we get started here tonight. I know a lot of people make a resolution in the beginning of the year, but I'd actually like to think of it more as a continuation of things that perhaps maybe you started or learned about in the previous year, and you're just wanting to take a new approach to it, and or maybe recommit to something that you started last year and got a little bit off track. So I'm going to begin the presentation tonight by just talking a little bit about my background, because I realize that I have a lot of people on that this may be your very first time of getting to know me. So I'm going to move my screen up. Oops. Okay, here we go. So that's me. If you don't see me in the camera there down in the bottom, you've got my picture there, so you can take a look and see me. And the reason why I want to introduce you a little bit to me is so that you can get a little bit of an understanding of why I'm so passionate about what I do and why I am here to share the information that I want to share with you tonight. And first off, I also just want to say that I know that there are a lot of other health professionals, nutritionists, naturopathic doctors, and health nutritional gurus out there in the field who do a lot of free webinars, and mainly why they do them is to get you to buy their larger programs. I just want to give you a heads up that I don't have a larger program to sell you. I'm actually more of an educator. I also run a nonprofit called Processed Free America. I have our nonprofit organization's mission is to educate people and to help them live healthier lives. And so, really, the only thing that that I will talk about that could perhaps be something that I would be selling, but just really not fully going to me, is as we go through the foods and we go through some of the supplemental products that I will be discussing. I have them available on my Amazon affiliate store, and a small commission goes to our nonprofit if you purchase them off of Amazon. You basically pay the same price as Amazon charges. It's just that they give us a little teeny tiny commission that goes back, and we put that money toward programs. We offer free nutrition programs to kids, and we do that several times during the year. And so I just wanted to let you know that heads up. So as we go through this, I'm going to be doing a little bit of educating, and I'm going to be talking about specific types of nutritional supplement products that can be helpful to you in your detoxification process. So first of all, just a little bit about my background for those who are new. And I wanted to say, as I looked through the list of people who signed up to be on tonight, I was pleasantly surprised to see so many familiar names. Some of you have been following me since my early beginnings of doing educational programs to the public back in 2005 and 2006. Many of you have taken classes from me. Some of you have been students at the Southwest Institute of Healing Arts. Some of you will maybe be future students of mine there. Some of you, I haven't yet had the opportunity to meet you yet, so I'm excited to share a little bit about my story with you as we go through this. My main background story is that I have a history of being obese. I always say that I basically was addicted to sugar and to starchy carbohydrate type foods from a young age. I started putting on weight at the age of 9, and by the time I was 19, I was technically classified as obese. So, I spent the majority of the rest of my teen years and into my 30s yo-yo dieting and going from one thing to another just trying to figure it all out. Like it was like just nothing really stuck, nothing really worked. As I was getting into my 30s, I was getting a bachelor's degree in environmental chemistry, and when I was just in my last year of college, I had a pretty interesting awakening during that time, and I'll oftentimes say it was like a perfect storm of events. One was I was working as a chemist in a lab already while I was finishing my degree, and I was learning about a lot of different pollutants and chemicals and things that people get exposed to all of the time. During that time, I was obese. I was also a 1-pack-a-day cigarette smoker, and probably engaged in some other, unhealthy behaviors and lifestyle practices. One very big, unhealthy behavior was that I ate a lot of food and I didn't really exercise. So there was just a lot of, background that I have around this. So for some of you, maybe you weren't to that point in your life, but the reason why I'm sharing this is because I want you to know that I've been there, and I know what it's like to be struggling and to have tried many different things that didn't work. And in the course of my last year of college, my wake-up call was that, one, I discovered that one of the chemical constituents in my angel food cake mix that I made regularly and frequently was a chemical degreaser that I was using in my work at the laboratory. And when I made that connection, that really stuck with me, and I thought, whoa, what else is in our food? What other types of toxic chemicals or things that am I eating? The second thing that happened was I just really had a sort of like what I would call a personal bottom. Like I hit a bottom with my weight, with my eating, with my food. I just didn't want to live that way anymore. And so it sort of all culminated around the same time. And it was at that point that I decided to kind of take responsibility for my health and really decide that I'm going to make a change. And my story is outlined in the book that I have written, which was also a culmination of many classes that I have taught in over the years. And they, I basically put my heart and soul into a book that was originally titled Plan D, and then was rewritten in 2012 into The Science of Skinny. The Science of Skinny is basically it's an expose on health, on processed foods. It's a lifestyle guide on how to transition out of that type of eating and into a more healthier, life-affirming relationship with your food and with yourself. And then it's a little bit of an autobiography as well, so sort of a little personal history in there with that. Over the course of learning all of that, I changed my diet. I detoxified myself from sugar, from white flour, and then from there I did it with other things as well. I got off of artificial sweeteners, I got off of pesticides, and then as more information comes available, you start to incorporate all of the things that you learn gradually, little by little. So I didn't do it all overnight. The first things I did, though, was I got sugar out of my life, and I got white flour out of my life. And for the main thing, I also got pretty well almost all flour out of my life, even the whole grain flours. And I'll talk a little bit about that tonight too. In 1 year of doing that, I released 100 pounds, and that was what I needed to release for me. Some people don't have to do that much. Some people maybe do, and maybe even more than that. But my hope for you tonight is that you will in some way find something that you can take with you, whether or not you feel that you need everything that I'm going to present to you, but you might. And I would encourage you to stay on and listen in to see what's coming up. So in the years that followed from losing that weight, that was when I decided to, I worked as a chemist for 19 years, and part of those years I went back to school to learn nutrition, and then started my own nutrition practice. started teaching to the community, wrote my books, and then in the last, it's been almost 5 years ago now, have been teaching at the Southwest Institute of Healing Arts. I'm also on the Board of Regents of another holistic college called Vitae Pondera Institute. It's another holistic natural health college that is offering post-secondary degrees like bachelor's degrees and master's degrees in different areas of holistic nutrition and holistic health. And the book, The Science of Skinny, is used in both of those educational programs as a textbook. So the book has really had legs. I'm really excited about that because when I wrote it, it was just really more of a personal message to get out there, because I really feel that people need to understand and know how food affects their body and how that's, you know, and what you can do about it. So tonight what we're going to be doing is we are going to be talking about sugar. Tonight we're talking about sugar. And I usually like to start the new year with a sugar detox because I always watch that movie Elf at Christmas time. And it always cracks me up how much all he does is eat sugar. Right? I mean, he's just a sugar addict. I mean, he's like the quintessential, I think. And I've met a number of sugar addicts in my life, but I don't think any of us ate the sugar in the way that Elf does. But anyway, you know, so what happens is when we eat a lot of sugar, we end up having crashes in our blood sugar. And you know, if you're experiencing sugar cravings right now, or if you've tried to let go of sugar in the past and it seems to always get you, no matter, you know, how hard you try, hopefully maybe some of the information tonight can help you with that. So I'm really glad you joined me tonight, and I'm going to be talking about some of the best ways that you can stabilize your blood sugar levels so you can beat those sugar cravings for good. So, and when I say stabilize your blood sugar levels, one of the things we have to realize about why we crave sugar is because in many ways our blood sugar levels are probably constantly higher than they need to be. So it's kind of like a chronic condition that's happening, and when you experience cravings for sugar, what's happening is your body's just trying to get to normal. And during that time, you're going to feel a little bit uncomfortable. So that's really what's going on with your cravings. So let's go, and I'm going to do a little bit of educating before I really get into the nuts and bolts of what you can do to get off of this. Because I think sometimes if you understand things, I always believe that knowledge is power. The more knowledge you have, it doesn't necessarily mean that your knowledge is going to be able to beat a sugar addiction, because if that were the case, we would all have beaten it by now, because I know a lot of people already have some knowledge. But I also believe that the more you bring yourself to the knowledge and the more you bring yourself to the truth, that when you are ready, the truth is just right there waiting for you, and the answers are right there waiting for you, and you'll be able to implement them when you are ready. But if you don't bring yourself to the truth, if you don't understand, if you don't have the knowledge, then when you're ready, you don't know what to do. So I feel like even if you've struggled for a very long time, just keep bringing yourself to the knowledge. Keep educating yourself. Stay there. I did a lot of my early work with my own transformation, going to support group meetings where they would say, just keep coming back and don't leave until the miracle happens. And I did that. So I just want to offer that little piece of hope for everybody. So what is sugar? What is sugar? So, well, first of all, I think most of us know what sugar is, but maybe we don't know about it on the molecular level. And one of the things that, you know, I'm all about is I'm a scientist. I had my background in chemistry, and I'm actually getting even more geeky in my sciencey stuff now, because I'm currently enrolled in a master's degree program at the Maryland University of Integrative Health. I'm getting a master's degree in human clinical nutrition, and it's all science. So I feel like I'm right up my alley, and learning more about it. And my deal is when I learn something that's very high level, but it's important information to know, then I try to really work hard to bring it down to a very easy to understand level so that everyone can benefit from the things that we need to know. So this is my very easy to understand explanation of what sugar is. I forgot to turn my phone off. Okay. Okay. So what is sugar? So we know that sugar cane is something that we can, sucrose is something that we can get from sugar cane or also from sugar beets. And one thing that I also want to say is that most of the sugar that's in our food these days, it used to be almost all from sugar cane. Like we would take sugar cane and juice it, and then they boil it and bleach it and refine it down to really just a pure white crystal. Today, actually, most of the sugar that's in our foods is actually coming from sugar beets. And sugar beets are a very specific type of beet. They're actually white in color, and they're not the red beets or the yellow beets that you buy in the produce section at your grocery store. Those beets are actually very healthy for you. Sugar beets are typically grown specifically for the production of white sugar. And so most of the white sugar that is used in foods these days is actually coming from beets. And there's really kind of no real way to tell the difference. If we had a sugar cube made from sugar beets or one from sugar cane, they look identical. They're basically the same because what they do to sugar beet or sugar cane is to just refine it all the way down into its basic sugar molecule. And this little image that I have here is an image of a sugar molecule. It's very simplified. For those who are more sciencey, you have to understand that it's not exactly to what it looks like in a real molecular structure, but at least it serves the purpose. The shapes that I used here are actually the shapes of the molecules. But what sugar is, and what we call sucrose or table sugar, is a glucose molecule that is linked to a fructose molecule, and they're linked together by a strong, stable chemical bond. So when you eat this, what ends up happening is your body has enzymes that will literally cut that bond in half, or they'll basically snip the bond, and then what happens is you have those individual little glucose molecules and fructose molecules going into your bloodstream. And where they go from there, I'll talk about in a minute. But this is basically what sucrose is. So when you consume it, it breaks down and it goes into your bloodstream as glucose and fructose. Let me go to the next slide here. So in addition to that, go back. In addition to what sucrose is, we also have something called polysaccharides, which are when you have a bunch of glucoses joined together in a great big large molecule. This one, what you're seeing here, is really just a small representation of something we call complex sugars or starches. And they are, usually it's like huge. It's like, it could be literally like thousands of them joined together in a great big molecule. So they're going to be really long chains of glucose that are also bound together chemically. So when you eat this, what happens is your digestive system literally snips the bonds between each glucose molecule, and then those individual little glucose molecules go into your bloodstream. So whatever you eat, it's any food really that has carbohydrate in it. So it could be sugar, like white sugar. It could even be raw sugar. It could be potatoes. It could be beans. It could be vegetables. It could be fruits. Anything that has a carbohydrate in it will break down that way in your body. And the way your body deals with it really depends on what else is coming with it. So if you're eating a whole food like an apple, for example, your body is going to break that down, and those sugar molecules are going to come into your bloodstream, but they're probably going to come in a lot slower than if, say, you just put a sugar cube in your coffee. or you ate a bunch of sugary food that didn't have a lot of other nutrition with it. So it depends on how quickly or how slowly these get into your body, and how this works when it comes to affecting your blood sugar levels. So let's take a look at this next thing. Okay, so basically both sucrose, which is sugar, and starches will break down into those single molecules, and they'll enter your bloodstream either rapidly or slowly. What you see on the slide down here, the blue line here represents what we call a low glycemic food, or basically it's a food that would not have a huge amount of sugar in it, or it breaks down very slowly so that you're not really getting a huge amount of those sugar molecules into your blood at any one time. The red line here, what that is it's actually showing this is what happens when you eat sugar in its refined form, and also when it's consumed in ways where there isn't a lot of other nutrients to help slow it all down. So what happens is you eat foods. Let's say you do a breakfast like a donut or a piece of toast that's really white bread, or a bagel, or a lot of these types of foods that have some really refined carbohydrates in them. Those foods break down really quickly, and then they go into your blood really quickly, and what happens is you get this really huge spike in your blood sugar levels. And remember, your blood sugar is really designed to, and for any need that you have for energy, you really only need a very small amount of sugars going into your bloodstream at any one time. And your body is constantly using those sugars to produce energy. So really, but you don't need a lot of it. So normally, your body just likes to have a little bit on hand, and when you eat a meal, you'll get some extra, so your blood sugar levels will rise a little, and then you'll come back down to normal. And when you come back down to normal, that's when you say, okay, I'm kind of hungry now, so it's time to eat another meal. So throughout the day, it's really just kind of supposed to be a gradual rise when you eat a meal, and then a gradual drop as your body is using up those glucoses for energy, and then eventually you'll get hungry, so that's your signal that it's time to have more energy. But when you eat a lot of sugar, and when you eat it constantly, like every day, like several times a day, and you're eating it, just in higher quantities, so you get these spikes that happen. And this chart only shows one spike throughout the day, but for a lot of people, what's happening is they spike, and then they drop, and then they spike, and then they drop, and you get what is known as a blood sugar roller coaster at that point. So what happens is, as your blood sugar levels are dropping, because they're just trying to get back down to normal, that's when you feel those cravings for sugar. So a lot of times, the sugar cravings that you have are really just, maybe you just need to ride it out, because I know it's uncomfortable, but sometimes it's really just a matter of, you need to kind of let your body adapt and adjust to what's normal. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more later. But for now, what I'm trying to show you is that a sugar craving is nothing more than a withdrawal symptom. It's really nothing different than for like people who smoke cigarettes. The body is not really designed to have nicotine, but once it gets used to it, and it has a certain level of nicotine, whenever you smoke a cigarette, you get a certain level of nicotine in the body, and then the body gets used to that. And so when your nicotine levels are dropping, which is basically, probably, it depends on what kind of person you are and how addicted you are, but it's when your nicotine levels are dropping that you crave another cigarette. And then you go and smoke another cigarette, and then you're fine again for a little while until you start having that craving again. And so with sugar, it's the same way. You're giving your body an unusually higher level of sugar than what it needs, and as it's dropping to get to normal, you feel those sugar cravings. And something else that happens sometimes is your blood sugar levels are dropping, they rise quickly, and in response to that, your body sends out a hormone called insulin, which is there to kind of take all that excess sugar out of your blood and bring it to your cells to be able to be used for energy. So as it's doing that, it's pulling it out really quickly, and then sometimes it sort of overshoots itself, like it doesn't know exactly how much, like the body doesn't know how much insulin it needs, it just knows it needs a lot. So it might shoot out a bunch of insulin, and then it pulls the sugar out of your blood too quickly, and then you get a blood sugar drop. Like you actually go below the normal level for your blood sugar. And when that happens, then you start getting shaky, and you start to get that irritable feeling, and for some people it gets really scary. So when you don't have a lot of sugar in your diet, what happens is that doesn't happen, or it doesn't happen as often. So you're just trying to stay normal here. Let me move ahead to the next slide. So this is just depicting the blood sugar roller coaster that can happen. So it's basically you're getting a lot of sugar, you're spiking, and then you're dropping, and you're doing that all day long. So eating sugar can take you up and down all the time, and then your cravings go up. And so what are the things that can actually help stop all of that from happening? A lot of times when people think of going off of sugar or getting the sugar out of their diet, they think that they also have to eliminate like everything sugar, like fruit even. Like a lot of people go, oh, well, I'm not supposed to eat bananas, or I'm not supposed to eat any sweet fruits, and I guess I should stay away from carrots and potatoes and all of those other things. Realistically, though, those things actually can sometimes help you to curb your craving, and it gives it to you in a slower dose rather than in a higher dose. So you really have to consider that whole natural foods are really the way to go, and that's really what we're going to be talking about tonight. So let me move ahead here. This is just to so what we want to do is we want to stabilize the blood sugar, because that's the key to being able to keep for your weight loss success if you need to lose weight. Fiber, antioxidants, and other nutrients are going to help to slow down how fast those glucose molecules enter your bloodstream. And on this little image, you can see that something like apples can actually be a very good type of food to help you with your sugar cravings. So if you're trying to taper yourself off of sugar, then you're going to want to maybe, like when you feel like you need to eat something sweet, it might be a good idea to have an apple or even maybe some other type of fruit so that it kind of helps you. The one thing I wanted to say here also about fiber is like the, I always say it's kind of like the stoplight at the entrance to the freeway. Like, when you have an on-ramp to the freeway, there's a stoplight and there's a little sign that says only one car for every green light. And the green light comes off and on so that only one car can enter at a time. And the reason for that, obviously, is so that you don't, get a big traffic jam coming onto the freeway, which is going to cause, too many cars, right? So oftentimes I feel like our bloodstream is like that, like with glucose. Like if we can regulate how fast the glucose gets in, it's kind of like, it kind of helps to keep it stable and steady instead of spiking. And so fiber is our nutrient that can do that for us, because what fiber does is it helps slow everything down, and it's sort of like the gatekeeper to the bloodstream. It stops things up and attracts things to it, so it's going to attract sugar molecules to it, and it kind of just helps it to slow it down so the sugar comes in gradually and slowly, so you have energy for over a longer period of time. You're also going to feel more satisfied between your meals, and you're not going to crave sugar. So where do we find fiber? Well, fiber is found in basically all of our plant foods. So when we think of plant foods, we'll think of vegetables, we'll think of fruits, beans, whole grains, and even sometimes if you eat things like parsley or cilantro, sometimes our herbs even have fiber in them. Anything that is a plant source of food will have some type of fiber in it as long as the food is kept in its whole form. So one of the things about grains that we know is, grains have carbohydrate in them, and if the fiber is removed to refine the grain, then we lose that. And that's why white flour oftentimes it almost breaks down as quickly in the system as sugar does, because there's no fiber there to stop it from doing that. And that's why white flour or other refined types of grains can be just as harmful to our bodies as white sugar can be. So you want to keep fiber. And how are you going to incorporate this fiber into your diet? Well, you're going to eat as many whole foods as possible. So you want to keep your fruits in their whole form. If you like to juice them, I'm sorry, not juicing. If you like to blend them, like in a smoothie, you can do that because you're still retaining the fiber. You're breaking down the cell walls, and your blender like kind of chews the food for you. And so if you think of fruit, let's say for example you take a couple of bites of an apple, for example, and you chew it and chew it and chew it and chew it. Eventually, it's going to get into the consistency of what it would look like if you put it in a blender and blended it up. So what the blender does is it just breaks it down into smaller pieces for you. But on a molecular level, there's not really a lot happening there in terms of fiber, because fiber is actually a very durable component of the food, and it doesn't even break down in your body like your other carbohydrates break down into glucose and end up becoming part of your bloodstream. The fiber in the food never breaks down, and that's one of the reasons why it's so helpful, because it doesn't break down. It's there to add the bulk to your gut as things are moving through it, and to slow everything down. So you can have smoothies. That's okay. And I know a lot of people have that question, like they go, I've heard that blending things up in a blender and making smoothies is breaking down the fiber. It's really not. The only way you can really break down any molecule is with enzymes. So, and where the enzymes are actually in your digestive system. So they're in the foods too, but you have to have them broken down also through the assistance of the enzymes within your digestive system. So don't be afraid of blending fruits, but you need to blend the entire fruit. You want to put everything in there, you don't want to juice fruits, because juicing fruits, you do remove the fiber. You're removing a lot of the fiber when you juice a fruit and only drink the juice. So it's better to juice vegetables, because they don't have sugars as like fruits do. Fruits contain sugars. Vegetables are more complex. And so it's important to remember that you don't want to juice too many fruits, maybe like an apple or something, along with your other vegetables, but don't overdo it. Like, don't juice 5 apples at once and drink that, because that's going to be almost the same as that Snicker bar there. And that's why you might have read that or heard that fruit juices are almost as sugary as sodas or as some other types of sugary drinks. And in a lot of ways, that can be true. And it can affect your blood sugar levels the same way, because there's no fiber there. One thing I wanted to point out, too, just as we're talking about this, is that sugar cane in its natural form, like if you actually had a sugar cane and you chewed it, there's a lot of fiber in there. So if you had a piece of sugar cane, you're just chewing on it, there's actually a lot of fiber in there. There's antioxidants, and there's a particular antioxidant in the sugar cane called polyphenols that has been shown to slow down the absorption of the glucose molecules into your bloodstream. So keeping sugar in its whole raw form is actually not harmful to the body. That was something that I learned when I was writing my books, and it really kind of blew my mind a little bit, like, wow, okay. And then even in countries where they grow the sugar cane, they use it as medicine a lot of times. They chew on the sugar cane to just kind of suck out the juice and all the nutrients, and it's kind of like a medicinal thing that they do there. And another really cool thing is they don't even get tooth decay when they do that. So all those nutrients within the sugar cane are great. It's only when we refine it and remove everything from it, that those sugar molecules become very damaging. Okay, so let me go to one more page here, and then I may switch to another document here. But in terms of breaking the sugar habit, there's a number of things that you can do. So first of all, I know a lot of people say you should just like go cold turkey. And, you know, other people say that's not a good idea because it's uncomfortable to go off of sugar. And so I'm going to, you know, leave it up to you on how you want to try it. But if you feel brave enough to go cold turkey, then I think sometimes that's good. And when I say no sugar, it really means no sugar, no refined sugar, no added sugar. Like, don't add sugar to things. If it comes in a food, like if it's naturally occurring in a food like a piece of fruit or a carrot or a beet or something, that we're not telling you to stay away from that type of sugar. What we're saying is to break your sugar habit, you should try to wean yourself off of refined sugars or sugars that are added to foods. So, you know, one really kind of cool clue here would be that if you just start eating more whole foods in their natural form, then you really can avoid a lot of those added sugars. So, you know, it's all about getting off the processed stuff and getting more into the whole foods. So you want to taper off gradually if that's what you need to do. So I always say that you will likely experience some withdrawal. I mean, if you have sugar cravings, those are withdrawals. So if you decide you're going to really taper off of sugar, you're going to experience some withdrawal. And you might, if you try to go cold turkey, it might be intense. So you might want to try to gradually reduce the amount of sugar that you consume as much as possible. So you can take it over time. You know, a lot of times I feel like, you know, let's just kind of take baby steps with this. Don't try to overwhelm yourself with trying to do too much at once. If you need sweet, and I know a lot of times people do, I typically like to recommend, and this may go against some things that other people have told you, but raw honey actually has an ability to help quell cravings for other sweets. And the reason why is raw honey is, it's actually very balanced with a bunch of antioxidants. It actually even has vitamins and minerals in it. And those particular nutrients can help your body be more satisfied. Like, you know, one of the things that your body really needs to function optimally are vitamins, like B vitamins and vitamin C, and you also need minerals like magnesium and zinc. And a lot of these are actually found in raw honey. And so when you have that, it's not just giving you a little bit of sweet taste and a little bit of sugar, but it's also giving you the supportive nutrients that help your body deal with the sugar much better. So if you need something small like that, you can do that. I actually recommend stevia, and that is one of the things that, you know, if you can do this, I know some people have their different reactions to the taste of stevia, and I also want to make sure that we all understand what type of stevia we're talking about here. But what we're talking about is stevia that is minimally processed. We don't want, I typically like to say that we don't want like powdered, refined looking types of stevia. It's better if it's in a liquid extract, because what they do with the liquid is they just steep the leaves in there, and then they filter it through a paper that can filter out the green color. And then you have basically, you know, something like a tea. And stevia is an herb that just happens to be super sweet. And so, but the sweet compounds in stevia are not sugars. So they don't raise your blood sugar levels. They don't have any calories. There's just a lot of benefits to stevia. Stevia actually also has nutrients. So that's another really important thing. I always like to tell people that when you do consume something sweet, the best choices to make are going to be the things that actually have nutrients in them also. So that is one thing that I will recommend. There's also a lot of benefit to exercise. And when you're going through a sugar withdrawal, I don't want you to consider doing anything really strenuous, but even just walking can be very good. Any type of exercise you do is going to release feel-good chemicals in your body called endorphins. They can help regulate your moods, and sometimes when you're going through sugar withdrawals, you do get a lot of mood swings that are, because let's just face it, if your blood sugar levels are rising and dropping a lot, and then all of a sudden it's trying to get normal again, it's a process that you go through that is going to make you feel different. But it's only temporary, and that's one of the things that I try to encourage people to understand is it's only temporary, and you can do it. You're strong enough. You can get through it, and we've got some things to help you. It should be quite obvious, but sometimes maybe it isn't, is to drink a lot of water. So sometimes when you have cravings, you actually might be craving water. And water is actually something that your body needs a lot of. We need to consume approximately whatever, it's always based on your weight, but people's weight we have different fluctuations with weight, so we have to look at it this way. At least a minimum of 64 ounces of water a day. That's our 8-ounce glasses. Let's say that's our minimum, so you should at least shoot for that. And if you need more than that, the way to determine that would be to take your lean body weight. So you have to take a weight that is one that is close to what the normal weight is for your height and your gender. And then you divide that in two. And what number you get is the number of ounces of water you would need. So, for example, if someone weighs 150 pounds, and that's their normal body weight, for a healthy size, then divided by 2 would be 75 ounces of water. If you weigh 128 pounds, then 64 ounces of water is your ideal water intake. So you just have to base it off of your body size and type. And everyone's different, so we have to make sure that we also honor our individuality as well. And then my final thing about it is to be patient, because it can take anywhere from 2 days to 2 weeks to withdraw from sugar. So we have to be really careful about that. Okay, so I'm going to, let's see, I want to take a little bit of a turn here and give you a little bit of a different screen. Let me see. Do you see a different screen now? Let me know if you see my specific liver healers here on the screen. You can let me know in the chat. No? Okay. Let me see what I can do to fix that. So I'm going to do a... Angie, yes, the information is in my books, and I'm also going to be emailing out access to this information as well. So, so yes, you will it's still the same screen as before. Okay. Well, let me see if I can to get it to do another one. Let's see. Okay. All right, well, I'm going to keep it up on that screen for the moment, and then I'm just going to continue to share with you. So some of the things, in fact, why don't I just stop my screen sharing and we'll just go to the camera. So I'll just be full on with everybody here. So, okay, so one of the things that, with detoxing from sugar, what we're going to see is that we have to provide our body with a lot of nutrients, and that's where the whole food comes in. That's where you get everything. It's like, I know a lot of times people don't really make the connection that things that go wrong with their body or the way that they feel has anything much to do with what they eat, but it actually does. How do we get health? We have to get it from our food, because we all know that if we don't eat anything, then eventually we're going to starve. Our body will start breaking down because it doesn't have the nutrients that it needs. And so how do we be optimally healthy? How do we have stabilized blood sugar levels? We eat the foods that allow that to happen. And so I want to give you some statistics on some of the things that are really good for helping you with that. Your body's main detoxifying organ is your liver. And so anything you can do to support your liver is going to help you with your sugar cravings, because what happens with those glucose molecules after they go into your bloodstream is they're either going to be carried to your cells and be converted into energy, and that energy is what keeps you going. It's like what allows you to breathe and stay alive and think and move and all of that. I mean, it's like your cells have little factories within them that, 24/7 they're creating energy, and so that every single cell in your body can have energy. However, sometimes if there's too much of that glucose coming in, then it's more than what the body can convert into energy at any one time. And so it will take the excess and store it in one of two ways. It will store it maybe in a short-term storage, which is something we call glycogen, and it just stores it in your muscles or in your liver. Or if there's even more sugar than what is even required for that, because that little short-term storage is it's kind of like a gas tank. It has a finite volume. Like, you can't overfill your gas tank without all the gas spilling over onto the ground. So in your body, it's kind of like that with the glucose. If you have too much, then it has to put it somewhere else, and where it usually puts it is in your fat cells. So it converts the sugar molecule into a fat molecule, and then it converts it into fat. And so oftentimes what can happen is the liver is doing all that converting, and it converts it into fat, and sometimes the fat starts actually accumulating in the liver. And then it can actually hamper your whole body's ability to detoxify itself well. So what we do in that case is the best way to mitigate all of that from happening is to give our body the foods that will help to detoxify us. So what we want are foods that have B vitamins, we want foods that have vitamin C, we want foods that have a lot of fiber, and then antioxidants. So what are the foods that can really help us scrub the liver and keep it clean? We need what we call cruciferous vegetables. That's our cabbage family. It's the cabbage. And by the way, cabbage of all kinds, like, red cabbage, Napa cabbage, green cabbage, Chinese cabbage, all those different cabbages. Cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprouts. Those are they're specifically really well suited for scrubbing out the liver and getting rid of toxins in the body. The other types of foods that we can really benefit from are garlic and onions and different types of bell peppers. So all the different colors of bell peppers are beneficial. The red bell peppers have actually more antioxidants in them than the green ones do. And if you're not aware, green bell peppers actually are just the unripe version of a red bell pepper. So if you allow the bell pepper to ripen longer on the vine, it will turn red. So the green bell peppers, that's why they're a little bit more peppery and bitter in their flavors, whereas the red bell peppers are a little sweeter. And that's owing to the fact that they're maturing longer, and their antioxidants are becoming more active as well. So the red bell peppers are great. We also want to eat things like whole grains. So I wanted to talk about whole grains for a minute. Eat the grains in their whole form as much as possible. Like, eat the oats in their whole form, like have a bowl of oatmeal. Eat brown rice. Brown rice is actually a really great fiber source, and it's also a great liver cleanser. Okay, and then also things like beans, quinoa, buckwheat. These are all really good. I try to get people to eat the grains in their whole form, because when you do that, what you actually avoid a lot of is you avoid a lot of gluten, which is typically found in wheat. And sometimes wheat gluten can be very, it has a sluggish impact on people's digestive systems. And some people, if they're allergic to it, they just need to avoid it altogether. But I think all of us could benefit from eating less wheat. And just broaden your horizon. There's so many other grains out there. Broaden your horizons. If you want to cook grains, you cook them just like you would cook rice. You can use a rice cooker for it. It's really easy. just put them with water or broth or whatever other liquid you want to use, and just put them in a pot on the stove or in a rice cooker or an Instapot or whatever people are using these days, crock pots, whatever you need to use for that. But your whole grains have the vitamins, they have fiber, they also have antioxidants. It's kind of interesting. Grains have different antioxidants that vegetables don't have. So it's important to have a variety of these and a variety of different foods. Oranges, lemons, and limes. One of the best things you can do when you're getting a sugar craving, squeeze some lemon into some water and drink it. That's probably one of the best things, because that vitamin C is going to help activate enzymes within your liver. They're going to start helping you to break down your carbohydrates better. And it's just an overall great cleanser as well. Lots of vitamin C in all the citrus. You also want to be eating, this is the one food that anyone who's ever taken a class from me knows, that green leafy vegetables are the king of all food. They contain every single vitamin except for vitamin D. So vitamin D we get mainly from being out in the sun. But for every other vitamin, green leafies have them. In addition to a lot of other minerals like magnesium and calcium. In fact, green leafy vegetables are probably the best source of calcium of all food. And I know that we've all been told that dairy products are a good source of calcium, or they have the most. But actually most of the dairy these days, it's not in a form that is healthy for us unless you're getting it organic or unpasteurized. And a lot of the calcium that's in those dairy products actually doesn't get absorbed. And so even though there's a lot of it in there, it doesn't get absorbed into our bones. And so it ends up becoming more harmful than helpful. In terms of supplements, I do want to talk a little bit about some different specific supplements that we could potentially use for helping us. There are a number of supplements that can help with sugar cravings and for also just detoxifying our body. Herbs are really good for this, and there are two specific herbs that can really be beneficial, and one of them is milk thistle, and the other one is dandelion root. And then there's a number of vegetables that you can use. There's a really great product by Renew Life, and it's called First Cleanse, and it's basically just a 2-week, like 14-day formula that you take. It comes in a capsule, so it's like dehydrated herbs and vegetables, and also some specific vitamins and amino acids that are very helpful for the liver as well. And you just take them for 14 days, and what they do is they help to assist your detoxification process. You don't have to take this type of a supplement to detoxify, but it helps to really kind of get things going and scrub. I think a lot of people like doing it because it kind of jump starts everything. Like ultimately what you want to do is you just want to eat healthy foods all the time, and that's what's going to naturally keep you clean. But if you've never done something like that before, then you're going to want to, you may want to try something like this. The supplement is called Renew Life, and it's called First Cleanse, and it's by Renew Life. So earlier I mentioned that Process Free America, my nonprofit, has on our website, which is processedfreeamerica.org, we have let me just see if I can switch here. Yeah, processedfreeamerica.org. We have let me get my screen back. What we have is an Amazon affiliate store. So on our website, if you go onto our website, you can click on store, and it will take you to actually a separate little website that we created that has all of our it's called deapproved.org, so deeapproved.org. It's like a separate little website that has all of the different types of things that I've approved to be healthy. So not just supplements, but, you know, products, books, you know, different types of things that have helped me along the way. And oftentimes I have people asking me, you know, what do you think of this or this product or that you know, thing, and it's all really great. So it's really important to realize that we have that, and we just get a tiny commission, so and it goes to support our nonprofit. I wanted to let's see, I had my wanted to go back to that. So it's called First Cleanse, and the company name is Renew Life. Renew Life is actually a digestive health supplement company. So they make a lot of things like digestive enzymes and probiotics and those types of things, and they also do, they have the cleansing formulas as well. It's a really important one to kind of help scrub out the liver. I also have something that I think most people will be interested in trying. If you are having a sugar craving, one of the best things that your body would like to have is protein, okay? So sometimes I even tell people to just eat a little bit of protein. So if you have a protein powder that you like, put a little bit of that in a shaker bottle with water and just shake it up and drink it, because that can kind of help you with your sugar craving. The other thing too, though, you might need a little bit more for, I'm gonna put in the chat here. It's called Deapproved.org. That's the website address. Deapproved. Okay. So then, and on there, what you do is, if you go to deapproved.org, you can just scroll down, and we have a list of all the different categories of things. And if you click on detox, liverizing, that's where you're going to see all of the products there that we recommend for that. So these are all things that will help you. What do I think of powdered collagen? I'll get to that one too. I know there's a lot of questions that have been coming up in the chat here. I'm going to get to questions very quickly here soon. So, so what I wanted to talk about here before I go to questions is there's a very, very helpful amino acid supplement called L-glutamine. And let me put that in the chat as well. I keep forgetting that I have this chat feature here. L-glutamine, and we have that on the Deapproved website. So L-glutamine is an amino acid that helps to give your brain what it's wanting when you're craving sugar. Remember, glucose fuels your body, and it also fuels your brain. And in fact, it's the most, it's the preferred fuel for the brain is glucose. So when your brain is so used to having a lot of glucose, like overload of sugar, and now you're trying to cut it down and get it to normal, the brain kind of, that's why you're feeling uncomfortable, and maybe even get foggy brain, or you get irritable, because your brain is going, hey, what happened? I was expecting to get this hit of sugar, and now I'm only getting this. And so it takes a little bit of time for the brain to adjust to that. So in that time frame, while that's happening, what you can give the brain is something else that it really likes. We actually call it a brain-feeding nutrient. It's called L-glutamine. It's an amino acid that's typically found in any food that has protein. But when we take it in supplement form, it's in a higher concentration, and it can really do wonders for helping to curb a sugar craving. So all you need to do is take a 500 milligram dosage of L-glutamine right when you're having a sugar craving. And within probably 15 minutes or so, that craving is going to go away, because the brain is being satisfied with really what it needs, and you're just assisting the brain in its adjustment period until you're really doing well on keeping sugar out of your diet and just eating more whole natural foods that will provide all of the nutrients that you need anyway. But the L-glutamine is especially really helpful. I think people will really benefit from it. Okay, so I've got about almost 10 minutes after 7, and so that's leaving me about 20 minutes left for the webinar. So I really do now want to go to questions, and I want to see. I'm going to have to kind of scroll back a little bit and start looking at some of the questions. And I do want to say I really appreciate those who are on here who are chiming in to answer some of these questions. I feel like you all are my little assistants and my little army of people who have been trained and educated by me in your ability to be able to answer some of these questions. So somebody wants to, what are some recommendations for healthy snacks? That's a good question, and I want to answer that. Recommendations for healthy snacks. So first of all, what a snack is something small. Like it's not going to be a large amount of food, and probably not even a large amount of calories either. So when I think of snacks, I think of just maybe something that's about a handful of something. So some of the best snacks to consume, especially when you're trying to get off of sugar, curb your sugar craving, some best snacks are things like nuts, and we're talking about a handful or an ounce, and depending on what kind of nut it is, it's going to be, if it's a large nut like a Brazil nut or a macadamia nut, then it'll be not as much as if it were something like almonds. And one of my, some things I have committed to memory, and one of them is 23 almonds equals 1 ounce of almonds. So, and if you were to count out 23 almonds, you would probably see that it's actually quite a lot of almonds. So, so I like to recommend nuts or some kind of a trail mix that you could blend up yourself. Like you could put seeds, like sunflower seeds, maybe some dried shredded coconut. You can chop up maybe a date. Dates are great to have with the snack as well. Those are, that would help kind of balance out your need for something to eat. It would also, the date would have a little bit of sugar in it, so that's good. That's one type of a snack. Some other types of snacks would be things like, I'll probably send this out as a recipe with my follow-up email to this. You're going to, something like a little protein bar or little protein balls that I just made at an event I was out over the weekend, which you take some type of nut or seed butter and you can add in protein powder to it, and then a bunch of different seeds like sunflower seeds, hemp seeds, chia seeds, and then you mix it all together and it forms kind of like a cookie dough consistency, and you roll it into little balls, and then I kind of roll it in like either dried coconut or hemp seeds or sesame seeds or something. Those make a really great snack too, and they've got protein. Seeds are one of those underappreciated foods for their nutrition, and so seeds can really be very good for helping you. Plus, seeds are like an amazing fiber, an amazing source of fiber. Like you can even grind up seeds and add them into your yogurt or into your salads and things to make sure that you're getting enough really good seeds. So those are some things. Someone's asking about Lara bars. Are those good? They are, but you have to be careful with some of them because Lara bar, they used to be a pretty good product for a while when the person named Lara was actually, heading the company. But since Lara sold her company to, I believe it was General Mills or Kellogg, I've noticed that the Lara bars now have things in them that are sugary, like chocolate chips and some other ingredients that are added in. And so if you go with the pretty, like, neutral Lara bar, like the ones where it's just dates and fruit and nuts, then I would say those are fine, but not the ones that have chocolate chips and, added sugars into them. So what about the sugar in red wine? And I think somebody asked about alcohol in general, like what about alcohol? Yeah, so if you're going to have alcohol, red wine would be my best recommendation, mainly because it actually has some pretty powerful antioxidants in it that can be beneficial. It's all about moderation, so having a glass, like, what is considered a normal glass of wine, like 5 ounces, a glass of red wine is probably okay. You just don't want to do it too much as you're trying to help your, support your liver and cleanse out, because alcohol can be hard on the liver, as most of us know. Like, it's actually a liver toxin. So we don't want to counteract the benefit of what we're trying to do to help our liver cleanse out with something that could actually be harmful to it. So so I always say just, in moderation. But red wine, and actually, interestingly enough, alcohol in general, doesn't typically have a lot of sugar in it. I was always kind of surprised by that. It's really not. Red wine is best because it has less. White wine is more sweet and has more sugar. But in terms of red wine, the more darker reds you go, the less sugar there is in them. So you just want to be careful with that. Someone was asking a question. Okay, kind bars and cacao. Kind bars. There is a particular one that is 5 grams of sugar or less, but I mean, if you have to do something like that, that would be the one I would recommend. They do have like a certain varieties of the kind bar where it says right on the package, 5 grams of sugar or less. So so that's keeping the sugar intake low. But you have to realize that the kind bars are, they do have some ingredients in them that are somewhat processed. So you're probably better off doing something that's a little more almost, I'm trying to think of another name brand of a bar that I think is probably better, like there was the Lara bar, but there's another one that's made by Cliff, and I think it's called the Kit bar, which is very similar to the Lara bar. And then cacao. There is what about cacao? We love cacao. That's probably one of my favorite superfoods of all time. I stayed away from chocolate for many, many years when I was first getting off of sugar and processed foods, because I didn't, and I don't think many people knew of the benefit of raw cacao. The superfood movement didn't come along until much later after I started my process. You have to realize I've been doing this for 25 years with my process. Like, I got off of sugar in 1992. So there's been a lot of changes in the world of nutrition and food since then. And some years ago when David Wolfe wrote his book called Naked Chocolate, and it was like, kind of like helped us all understand just the supreme perfection of this plant called cacao. And if we eat it in its raw form, like as either the dried cacao powder or the raw cacao nibs, it can actually be quite beneficial. So there's lots of things you can do with cacao. You can add little cacao nibs into your trail mix. That would be another thing to put in there if you really wanted that. There's a lot of really good things to do. One of our favorite ones to make with cacao is with avocados and dates and cacao powder. You blend that all up in a food processor, and you make like chocolate pudding, which is really good. It's like amazing. You can't even taste the avocado because that cacao just takes over the flavors, and it's really wonderful. So there's lots of things. I was going to mention about some other just different types of snack ideas. You can go with also just something simple like some whole milk yogurt. You can go with that. One thing that I like to put in I always get plain yogurt, no sugar added to it, and then just add some cinnamon to it, and maybe a little bit of stevia. And if you want to add some like berries or something into it, that actually makes a really good snack. And a lot of times I hear from people like, oh, sometimes eating healthy is not convenient. Well, one thing I learned how to do that it probably is not as it's maybe not as easy as going into a convenience store, but if I'm like out driving around and I'm realizing that it's been a long time since I had a meal, and it might be a long time before I get home to have my meal, I might just like pull into a grocery store and go in and buy a yogurt, like buy a plain yogurt, and I tend to carry a little thing of stevia in my purse, And I always have plastic spoons in the glove box, of plastic forks and spoons in the glove box of my car for occasions when I might need to do something like that and I need a spoon or a fork. So I'm always prepared, and I do have to say preparation is really one of the keys to success, because if you're prepared and you have a plan of action, no matter what the plan is, even if your plan is that you're just going to go to a grocery store and get something, that's your plan. That's something, and it helps you to just go to the drive-thru and get whatever. So it's important to have something like that. But just go in and get a yogurt. I like to put cinnamon in my yogurt because it makes it sweeter. It gives it a better taste. If you're out and about, you might not have any cinnamon on hand, but at least you'll have something. So those are, some other ideas that you can do. A few people are asking about turmeric and curcumin. So these are two very, well, turmeric is a sort of like a little tuber, and it's a very powerful food for the liver. Its bright yellowish orangey color is indicative of something called beta-carotene, which is very powerful liver scrubber. So you can eat turmeric, put a little piece of it in a smoothie or use it in your cooking, or you can buy it in supplement form. And curcumin is the active component in turmeric. So yes, you can do that. In fact, I tend to, recommend taking either, adding, just using the spice, the powdered spice of turmeric in your cooking. And if you take a supplemental form of turmeric, you want to make sure that there's another component in it called piperidine, which is an active component in black pepper. And apparently the synergy between that component and the curcumin increases the absorbability of the curcumin by 2,000%. It's pretty amazing. So you really want, if you're going to do a supplemental form of turmeric, get one that makes sure you have that with it. We also know that turmeric is better absorbed with some type of healthy fat. So if you're going to take it when you eat a meal where there's some fat in your meal. So you need healthy fats in your diet. I noticed some people were asking me about coconut oil and maybe some other oils here. But so coconut oil, despite what the American Heart Association put out last year, which was really a flawed, older kind of information, but coconut oil is healthy. With any food, obviously, we know that it needs to be in moderation. We have to balance everything. It's not about when you hear that something is good that you should do a lot of it. It's when you hear that something's healthy for you, it means you can incorporate that into your diet in a balanced way so that you get the benefit of those foods. So coconut oil is our best oil for cooking with any kind of high heat. Olive oil is our best oil for salads and for, dressings. Those are the two probably healthiest oils that we can use because of the fact that they're not refined or processed. They're what we call virgin, meaning that they're just pressed with a mechanical press, and there's no chemicals or heat involved in the pressing. And that's what makes those two oils really valuable and healthy for us. Most every other type of oil that you can purchase on the market in bottles have all been exposed to some type of heat or chemicals, and it damages their oil molecules. So it's not something that we want to be consuming on a regular basis. And so that's one other thing that I could add in there. There's so much to know, and that's why I teach classes, because we could do a whole class on just oils, and maybe that'll be coming up in a future webinar. I know a few people who would appreciate learning more about oils. Someone's asking me about avocado oil. Avocado oil, similar to olive oil, so I forgot about that one. But yeah, that one I would use. I know that it's touted for heat for cooking, but I actually caution against that and just use it in the same way as olive oil, as more for salads or low heat. Is solid coconut oil better than liquid? Yes, absolutely. The only way you can get liquid coconut oil is if you remove some of the components of the oil. There's the coconut oil actually is very solid usually, and that's owing to some of the fatty acids within it that are very beneficial to our health. But they make it solid. They just don't melt at lower temperatures, so they make the oil solid. When those are removed out of the oil, it's basically almost like a refinement or a fractionation process where they'll either use chemicals or they'll just use a steam distillation process so they can take those ones out. They basically filter them out, and then you're left with just the parts of the oil that would be liquid at room temperature. But at that point, you're getting the benefit of the ones that will stay liquidy, because they're called medium chain triglycerides, and those can be beneficial also. But at the same time, you've lost some of the other ones that were also more beneficial, the ones that improve your immune system and fight off germs and viruses and that type of thing. So I think that it really depends on what you're using the liquid for, and I don't recommend cooking with it. Thanks for the popcorn compliment. It's one of my favorite ones too. I'm really appreciating all of the questions that are coming in, and let me just remind you all, when you signed up for the webinar, we now have your email to send you out. I'm gonna, since we're recording it, we'll have the replay link so that you can get the replay link. You're also going to get a set of recipes and my 14-day detox protocol, which has, just a lot of the things that we talked about tonight, but sort of like a little step-by-step process and a menu that goes along with it, so that if you want to do this, it will be very easy for you to implement it. And also you'll have the access to where you can get the supplements that I recommended for tonight. And then you'll be notified of when we have more webinars. That's my intention for this year, is to do more webinars. I sort of took a little bit of a hiatus last year from doing a lot of webinars, just mainly because my schedule was going to school and doing a lot of other things in my profession. But I want to get back to connecting with all of you and into the public, and just helping everybody get healthier. I don't think it can be overstated how damaging sugar is to our body. And when we consistently struggle with being addicted or craving with sugar and trying to get it out of our diet and then taking it back and getting rid of it, it's just really, it's a kind of like a drainer on our energy. Like, why are we spending so much time having to deal with that? It's just makes it easier if you get off and then you stay off. There's a great analogy that I kind of want to leave you with, which is, I heard this many, many years ago when I was first starting my process from someone who was a wise mentor, and she said to me, it's if you're on a moving train, it's easier to stay on the train than it is to keep jumping off the train and trying to jump back on while it's moving. And it made so much sense to me. And so one of the mottos that I've lived by for all these years is just stay on the train. If it feels tempting to jump off and thinking that you're going to be jumping back on at some point before you miss it, it's just, I would ask you to think twice about that, because the more you do this, the easier it gets. I know it's not an easy thing to get started, but once you start it, you start feeling so much better that you start going, wow, I feel better. What more can I do? And so I want to encourage you to continue to bring yourself to that truth, because it's going to be there waiting for you when you're ready. And I hope that you're ready either tonight or someday soon. So I want to thank you so much for joining me tonight, and I will be in touch. Stay in touch with me on Facebook. I'm on Facebook. You can email me. There's all sorts of ways to connect with me. So please do stay in touch. I thank you so much for joining me tonight. Many, many blessings.